welcome back to the Ripple Effect for episode 3 called Keeping God in Our Schools. I feel personally like this is an extremely important episode because, kids are our future. And they spend the majority of their time as they're growing up in those crucial years at school. Yes, in the classroom. Y'all spend more time with these kids than their parents do. So I'm here with Kayty Rawson, a high school Spanish teacher, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Kayty, obviously, and I'm married to my husband. Currently, we've been married 18 years. We've been together 21, 22 years. We have 2 sons, Israel, who is 17, will be 18 in September, and then Micaiah, who is just turned 15. It's crazy. So, yeah, born and raised in Tupelo, super local girl, deep roots in this community. So we love Tupelo.
Cool. And how long have you been a teacher?
So this is I always have to tick it off, but I'm always 18 or 19. I think I just finished my 18th year, okay? I go this year to this year. I think I just finished my 18th year and I'm starting my 19th year. But if I'm wrong, maybe I just finished my 19th year and I'm starting my 20th. Anyway, it's been a minute, okay? Yeah. My goal, I'm trying to get to 28, and then I want to do something different. I don't know. Could be education, could be something else. I want to have a second act, but education has been, it's, I've loved it. I really have. Yeah.
Been your life.
Accidentally, almost.
Okay. Well, what is it that made you want to become a teacher?
Honestly, I didn't want to become a teacher. So I'm not one of these people that grew up saying, oh, this particular teacher influenced me, that's who I want to be. I had teachers growing up that I really liked, that I enjoyed, but I never had that one teacher that, a lot of people can say, this one teacher is what changed everything for me. Right. I feel bad because when people are like, who is that person? If I'm in a workshop or something, and they go around and they're like, who was the teacher that made you want to teach? I'm just like,
you didn't have one?
No. I hate to say because I know God's hand was 100% in it, but I sort of accidentally fell into teaching. I had all these new roles in my life. All right, so I had just gotten married, so I was a new wife. I was working in a new job, so that's a new role before I even had a teaching job. Then I find out I'm a new teacher, so now I'm a new wife. I think we celebrated our 1-year anniversary a couple of days before I started that first teaching job. So I was very newly married. I was pregnant when I first started teaching. Literally, I worked 1 month this big. So I literally went in. I worked from August 1st to September 1st. Israel was born on September 1st. I took off from September 1st to October 1st, and I was back October 1st. So, that first year was just crazy.
Yeah.
So I was a new wife, a new teacher, and about to be a new mom. And I just remember, I just remember hitting my knees going, God, I have all these new roles in my life. How
are you going to keep up with them?
One new role is enough to kind of make you question, who you are, when, I was 24 years old. It's a baby. I was, literally trying to find myself. And so I'll never forget, I was praying one night, and I was like, God, who am I in all these roles? Who am I as a mother? Who am I as a wife? Who am I as a teacher? And I didn't want to lose Kayty either,
right.
But I wanted to fill these roles and fill them well. And so one of the first Bible verses that I ever remember learning was Galatians 6:8, which says, be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Right. And so basically, it's just, it's a very popular, it's the law of the harvest, essentially. You reap what you sow. Some people call it karma. Their songs, what goes around comes around. It's a very true, real life philosophy. So I just remember thinking, okay, you reap what you sow, you reap what you sow. So I had this child that had not been born, but I knew that even though he wasn't going to be in the classroom for several years, he was going to be a student soon. Right. I was going to have all these new students.
Right.
So I'll never forget, and I've said this many times, this has literally changed my entire philosophy, both as a teacher and really as a mother a little bit, but I promised God, I said, God, I promise you that I will treat every student that walks through my room the way that I want Israel's the way I want Israel's teachers to treat him. And so I said, God, please, I beg you, what I sow into these students in my classroom, please let me reap my own personal children.
Right.
And he's been so good and so faithful to do that.
Powerful.
But that's essentially what shaped my teaching philosophy, and that God of his promise to me too. God, you promised me, and I promised you that as long as I treated these students, good and kind, and I always erred on the side of love and erred on the side of grace, that you would let Israel reap what I sow in these kids, and then later you would let Micaiah reap what I sow in these kids. And he really, really, really has. And so that is definitely what has shaped me as a teacher in how I teach and how I interact with kids.
Right, that's amazing. Well, it sounds to me like he was preparing you with all of those other things for where he wanted you to be now. Well, before I get started with my questions, I just want to say that I hope everybody is staying cool right now, because we are doing this interview. We are doing this interview outside here at Maze To Go Cup, which is a newer little local coffee place. I'm drinking.
Not sponsored. This is just that good.
Yeah, no, I'm drinking the what's it called?
Yours is this Posy?
Yeah, the Posy. I'm drinking the Posy, and it is amazing and helping keep me cool. You can find them at 1699 Coley Road, and we want to thank them for allowing us their patio space here to do our podcast today. And it's such a cute place.
For like a girls' night, a date night, something. They have like
well, see, now they just got to where they're open on Friday and Saturdays until 8 p.m. The rest of the week, it's 6:30 a.m. to 2 p.m.
My husband, if you're watching this, you can take me on a date.
Yes, but their coffee is absolutely amazing. So if you haven't been by up here at Coley Road, you need to try it. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I have several questions that are, what I would consider to be on touchy subjects when it comes to public schools. The first being, it is important. I feel that it is extremely important for not only children to have that source of education when they're during their school days, but to also have places like we were talking about, that safe place. In a classroom, I don't think it matters what subject, whether it's a Spanish teacher, or English teacher, whoever, it takes all kinds, right, to make the education system work.
I am a non-tested subject, and so I do feel like it is easier for me sometimes to give a little bit of, it's about relationships, but I also feel like it's easier for me sometimes to get to have that safe space in my room, because we don't have the same time constraint. We don't have all the stressors and stuff coming on us that state tested teachers do. I'm saying this, saying I acknowledge how blessed I am that I have a little bit more wiggle room in that, in my content and stuff like that. So I can kind of be that safe place, and so I just want to acknowledge that, because state tested teachers are, teachers are already up here, and state tested teachers are just
right. So one of the big things that I want to ask is, okay, I'm sure that you see a lot of children's home life follow them into school.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of kids' home life is not, is very different from one another.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are a lot of people that do the best they can with their kids, and we're not talking about financial status or anything like that. We're talking about the emotional care and spiritual care in a child at home. Tell me how you see the differences in a child that is emotionally and spiritually cared for at home and one who is not, and the kind of difference that can make when they come to school for their relationship with their teachers, as well as their relationship with their fellow students. Tell me how a parent can play a role in making a difference in these children's school day.
Oh, a parent. No, okay, that's a great question. A lot to unpack there. so many ways. It plays. So first of all, kids nowadays are so much different. Like, I'm 42. Kids nowadays are so much different than they were like when I was in school. And I know you hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that one thing is I know me, I was incredibly blessed to grow up in just the most wonderful home ever. I had financial security, emotional security. My parents were married. I mean, I don't have any type of abuse to speak of. And so I don't say that to brag. I say that to say, thank you, God. I came from a wonderful home. But even still, had something been going on with me, I never would have gone to school and like spread that everywhere. I never would have, we didn't have social media, but I never would have put on social media that I was depressed or something like that. But I just wouldn't have. We just didn't share our family stuff like these kids do.
Yeah.
These kids share everything. Y'all, if you don't want your kids' teachers to know something, don't do it. I'm telling you.
Or at least not in front of your
right.
kids.
I'm telling you, these kids, like, they will tell if their parents are having affairs. If they will, girl. They will. And I'm just sitting there going,
oh my gosh.
they will tell, all kind of different stuff. But for me, I think the main thing, it's usually pretty, you can, okay, I've always said, bad kids come from good homes, and good kids can come from bad homes, and good kids can come from good homes, and bad kids can come from bad homes. Sometimes the parents can be the most wonderful thing ever, and the kid can just be a punk. Bottom line, okay? Sometimes the parents can be horrible, and somehow or another, they lucked out with just an absolutely wonderful kid.
Yeah.
Yes, okay? So taking those off the table, that off the table. Neediness is one thing that you see with kids who maybe come from a house that they're not getting their emotional needs met. I think these days with social media, with COVID, with stuff like that, I think it's a lot more popular or common to say, oh, I have anxiety, I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm that. I mean, I think everybody has some anxiety to a certain degree. Do I think a lot of kids kind of exploit it a little bit? Yes. Now, that being said, when a child is getting what they need at home, they come to school to learn. They come to school to learn content.
But if they're not,
But if they're not getting what they need at home,
they come to school to get.
they come to school to get what they need, and the content just kind of takes the back burner. They don't care about that, because just like your physical needs have to be met, your emotional needs have to be met in order to learn. So for teachers, it's kind of always this fine line between helping kids, giving them what they need, but also, trying to be there for them, but not overstep. I always want to make sure to respect the parents, even if the kid wants to come in and speak to me. If they need to come to talk to me about an assignment they were late on, or this or that. If they are sleeping in class, rather than yelling at them, I remember my first year or second year teaching, this girl kept putting her head down in my class, and it's very important as a teacher not to take things personal. But I had to learn this. And I was taking this personal. I mean, I was a very new teacher, and I just was like, she is disrespecting me. This is my classroom.
Right.
And I'm teaching, and what I have to say right now is more important. But what I have to say right now is not more important than
That's not what Jesus said to people.
Right, yeah. I mean, but I was just thinking, like, this is my content. Like, you were disrespecting me because I'm trying to teach you something.
Right.
So I'll never forget, I walked over to her, and I tapped her on the shoulder, and I was like, hey, sweetie, this is the second or third day you've fallen asleep in class. Like, what is going on? And my initial inclination was want to be to get onto her and write her up and send her to the office. And thankfully, I didn't. But she said, well, my mom got taken to jail in the middle of the night, and I've got a really young sibling, and I had to stay up with him. And, I didn't get any sleep. And I just was like...
She was dealing with adult things as a child.
She absolutely was. And that happens, especially as a high school teacher, that happens so much more than we realize. But so I told her, I was like, oh, baby, go back to sleep. Do you want a blanket? I mean, it's just that I'm telling you, that was one of those
A realization moment for
God moments for me, that as a teacher, that generally their behavior is never about their behavior. Their behavior generally is about something else. And so it's important to me to get to the bottom of the behavior. And I have also found that when I am kind of laid back and calm with them, and when they do something disrespectful, even if I have the right to send them to the office or write them up, if I go to them very calmly and say, hey, listen, the way you're behaving is disrespectful. Can we talk about this? Like, is there something going on that I need to know about that's causing this? You know, I have found that goes so far with me in us actually getting to the root issue of the disrespect. And it's helped me to not take stuff personal, because rarely are they just trying to disrespect me.
Right.
No, they're not. It's just that they generally have something else going on that's causing that behavior.
And just because you have the right doesn't make it right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes you just have to be there for them. They just want to know you care about them. They just want you to hug them.
They just want your time.
They do.
Just a little bit of your time.
They just want to pull up a chair next to your desk, and sometimes it's even them literally pulling a desk up next to my desk, and they'll just do their papers. You know, they'll do their work right there, or they'll pull up their chairs right around me. Sometimes it's just they want that
Presence.
adult attention, and it can be female, it can be male. It's obviously devastating if they don't have a good female role model. I mean, I'm telling y'all, men, be there for your kids, okay? Because if you want to raise good kids, sometimes it's just spending time with them, you know? So, yes, they want to be provided for monetarily, but kids these days, just like they want our time and attention, they want their parents' time and attention. And
even when they act like you're embarrassing them and they don't want to be seen with you.
absolutely, that's their job, right?
Yeah.
That's their job. But it's usually pretty obvious which kids are getting what they need at home versus which kids are not.
Right. Okay, that leads me to my next question. Are there any, well, let me start with this. Are there policies and laws that restrict or allow you as a teacher to spiritually influence your students and your coworkers?
Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. Now, I'm not necessarily going to say this all pertains to coworkers just because they're adults, and I guess, you know, but as far as the students go, you have to keep in mind, I work in a public school, right? Now, if I wanted this to be different, I would go work at a Christian school or a private school. So I'm specifically talking about a public school, and I took a job working in a public school knowing that this is a mission field. This is my mission. I am not a minister in the classic or traditional sense, but I am a minister in my classroom. Now, let me say this. There's the First Amendment, which of course is the freedom of speech, but there's also, there are, you know, like bullets under the First Amendment that actually strictly prohibit government entities, I work for the government entities from pushing or forcing any kind of religion on students or advocating for a certain religion. Now, that being said, there are ways around it, but for me, it is not important. For me, it is not important to push my Christian agenda on somebody. It is because I believe that my God is strong enough to lead them and guide them. Now, and draw them to Him. For me, it's more important to show them Jesus, treat them good, treat them kind, to hear them out. So, but even when I'm talking to them about stuff and everything, I can show them Jesus without violating those rules and laws. Yes, exactly. Like, I can't force them to do anything. Like, for example, like standing for the flag. Okay, I know this is not like a Christian thing, so to speak, but I mean, you know, our school, standing for the pledge. Our school, we have the pledge every day, and the kids are supposed to stand and, you know, salute the flag. And a lot of kids just don't do it. I mean, they don't. And so it is very easy to say, you're going to stand up, that's what I told you to do, and I really can't make them though. You know what I'm saying? Because they could be Muslim or something like that. And so I might say, hey, listen, guys, I can't force y'all to stand up, and if you decide you don't want to, that's fine. But could I maybe get you to think about possibly what if maybe like one of your classmates or something, maybe they have like a sibling or a parent or something that's in the military and has been fighting or whatever. Would you
For you to be able to sit here in his classroom and do what you're doing.
Yeah,
At least respect that.
Would you possibly consider standing out of respect to your classmate? And sometimes they will, that'll get up. But that's one of them. I tell them that at the beginning. Like if we're going to have food in the classroom, let's say that. We have to call it a cultural celebration. Okay, but like if we're gonna have like a little party, or maybe I've got a group that is with me and then they go to lunch. Now, I cannot legally like say a prayer over them.
Right.
Like I cannot, because I might have kids in there who we've got. I mean, Tupelo is such a multicultural school. It's the University of Tupelo. It's so big with all this. We have kids that are Muslim. We have kids that are obviously we've got Christians. We've got Mormons, we have, kids who don't claim any type of religious affiliation. And so just like I don't want somebody forcing like a Muslim prayer on me or something, I don't force it on them. So I just say, hey, listen, we're about to eat, or we're about to, go to dinner, we're about to go to lunch, we're about to eat this food. We're going to have a moment of silence. Me personally, I believe in praying before I eat. So in my moment of silence, I'm going to say a quick prayer over my food. You guys feel free to do whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. If you want to pray, please feel free. If you need to pray some different way, if you don't want to do anything, that's fine. So we're just going to close our eyes, and I'll say, okay, let's close our eyes. We'll have a moment of silence. I'll pray to myself, obviously, and then I'll say, okay, thank you. So I'm not forcing anything on anybody.
Giving them an example.
Yes, I just showed them,
Right.
And I may talk about church a lot, but I'm not saying you need to go to church, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. It's more it's so important to build relationships, and part of building relationships is talking about your outside life. That's right. And talking about myself.
Right.
And so I'll say, oh guys, we had this big thing in church over the weekend, and it was so fun, we did this, or, I'll tell them, y'all know my husband's worship leader, do y'all want to, oh, I got this great video of him, and they'll say, Miss Rawson, can we hear your husband sing? And so I'll pull it up and I'll let them listen to him sing. But it's not that it's a Christian song. It's just I'm wanting them to see a part of my life. And so that has helped. And then if the kids come to us and ask us questions, we absolutely can answer those questions. We just have to be, and we can talk about religion if we talk about it objectively, especially if it's part of like the content or something. Being a Spanish teacher, so much a part of that culture is Catholicism, so we might talk about, the stuff that they do for holidays that has to do, especially like over Easter and stuff like that, we're able to pull that up, but that's because that's related to the content. And if they come to me and ask me a question, I absolutely can answer it, but it has to be objective. And my goal is not to force Jesus on them. My goal is to show them Jesus, and I believe, like most of us teachers, we want to teach what's called the whole child, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I want you to learn Spanish, don't get me wrong. But honestly,
you would rather teach them how to be a good human being than teach them Spanish fluently.
That's way far down the line in my list of priorities, because I want to teach you how to be a good human.
Right.
I want to teach you how to handle things, and that may come down to
how to respect other people even when you don't agree with them.
And so that's kind of the goal. And in religion, just to sum that up, there are ways around it, but I just want them to see Jesus in me and to say, wow, I don't necessarily remember all the Spanish she taught me, but I remember how she made me feel. I remember
how she supported me.
I remember how she supported me. I remember how she
loved us.
That's right, how she would put her hand on my back when she could tell I was having a bad day. I'm pretty good at reading my kids. Like, after a while, they start to come in with they're not good at hiding stuff here. So a lot of the times when they come in, I can tell pretty much off the bat, I'll go, what's wrong? And they'll usually tell you or whatever, and if they may say, Miss Rawson, don't call on me today, don't this, don't that. I had a horrible day, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, you just need to communicate that.
And I think sometimes it helps even just to have, even if they say I don't want to talk about it or whatever, even just to have someone ask.
Absolutely.
For someone to show that they care.
If you're ready to talk about it, I'm
For
here.
someone to show that they care that you're upset about something or care that you're not having a great day, I think that has a really, really, really big impact.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me go on to. Okay, I'm just going to come out and ask you: are you required to retain or keep information from parents now? Like you said, going to school now, public schools now are way different than when me and you were in grade school. So, when we were growing up, we didn't have any privacy.
Yes.
There was no such thing as the student's privacy. But now we all know that there is a lot of things going on in regards to students' privacy, quote unquote. So, are you required to withhold or keep anything from these students' parents regarding the students' privacy?
Am I required to withhold or am I required to share?
Are you required to withhold?
No. We absolutely can let the parent know that. That's completely up to us and up to our discretion. If they,
What is it? Let me specify. Okay. So my oldest one came home one day and he said, Mama, there's a student that claims to be, what is it? What's the term they use? A furry.
Oh.
That claims to be a furry. And I was, you excuse me for my ignorance,
No.
but I'm like, what is a furry?
Yeah.
And he's like, Mama, it's, where they wear the
They
ears,
try to act like
or
they're
they wear a tail or whatever. And he said, and they use litter boxes and things like that. And I was like, what? Like, what are you even talking about? And he said, yeah. Well, then he starts telling me about how they took the stuff off before they would get off the bus because their parents didn't know. And I said, well, do your teachers not let the parents know that there's something going on? Obviously there's something emotionally or mentally going on with this child.
Unless
Do the
it's just
teachers?
attention.
Do the teachers? And sometimes it's
there's
that.
a lot you have to say. Okay.
Sometimes it's that.
Okay.
So I'm asking, is that something that y'all are allowed to notify the parents is going on with the child, or do y'all have to keep that from them?
So I know for me, when it seems like a child is really struggling, it's such a fine line between being there for them and overstepping. And so I think it really just comes down to as long as you take the hurting others, hurting themselves, or abuse out of the equation, because that's out of our hands. We have to. Otherwise, it's pretty much up to us what we think. But I am not required to tell a parent that a student is saying they're a furry or this or that. If I feel like the parent,
But you can, if you feel it's necessary.
I absolutely have the right to let the parents know anything that I think they can know about their children.
Right. I definitely see all of the efforts and the paths that it seems that Tupelo High School especially has taken to, in the time that they've taken to
Serve everybody.
find ways to work with all the equality laws and all the,
They really do a good job. They
and also be able to not exclude. That's one of my biggest problems is, it's all about equality and making sure that no religion or no belief is suppressed for anybody. But then in a lot of places, Christianity or our beliefs are what are suppressed. We have to be suppressed in order to not suppress everybody else. Is what
Yes.
it seems like in everywhere else.
Yes.
And so I really feel like it's that Tupelo has done a really good job of making sure that that's not the case here.
Yes.
And I'm really proud of that. But another question that I have is, so, a few years ago, you heard about, I know that there's a lot of teachers that have suffered from this kind of struggle, this kind of stuff going on. But this one in particular, she lost her job. She was a PE teacher in California, I think. And she lost her job due to she would not agree to allow males that claimed to be females into the female locker room. They told her that she had to. If they claimed to be female, she had to allow them to be in the female locker room.
That's a safety issue.
And she refused. She refused to allow that as the PE teacher, and she lost her job. So, after all the things that you told me,
maybe a law thing, maybe in Mississippi, she wouldn't have had to do that.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, I feel like there's, after watching some interviews and stuff with her. By the way, if you are a teacher and you do find yourself in a situation where you are being treated unfairly like that, or you unjustly lose your job over standing by your beliefs or whatever, then I strongly encourage you to utilize a resource called pji.org. And that is a company that specializes in things like that. And you can definitely reach out to them and let them know your situation and what's going on and what you're facing, and they will definitely do everything they can to help you. So anyway, I'm going to move on to what would you say to people that are in teaching or are looking into, going through the motions and getting the education and stuff to become teachers, or doing, the route like you did, and are almost leaning towards changing their mind because, say, they don't, they're not blessed enough with the things that we have here in Mississippi or here in Tupelo, and things aren't that way, and they are Christian people with beliefs like this, but they are leaning towards not getting into education due to that. Where do you feel that leaves? How do you feel that affects the students by them choosing to not be a part of those kids' lives and to not be those influences in those kids' lives, to not be the salt and the light in dark places?
It definitely affects the students. I mean, I think that, yes, you need to think about students, but you have to think about yourself first, because you can't get water from a dry well, So I would say, for one, they could look into going to like a Christian school or a private school or something like that. But the thing is those kids
sometimes those are worse.
That. Yeah.
Sometimes those are worse.
100%. I'm just saying legally, if they don't want to have to face the legal ramifications. But I mean, those kids in the class. Number one, you don't need to get into education if you don't love students and you don't want to try to make a positive impact on their life, because there are too many obstacles. Bottom line. Okay?
Right.
If this is summer break is wonderful, but in which, by the way, we only get paid for exactly the amount of days we work, which is 189 days, and we get paid for 189 days, by the way, guys, and they just stretch it out over 12 months. Okay? So we don't get paid for, any time that we are not at work. Now, that's why also you see a lot of teachers working second and third jobs.
And Kayty loves her second job.
Yeah, I have a second job. Lots of teachers I know have second jobs. Because you feel like it's a calling. It's definitely a career, but it is a calling. And you have to want to be there. It is very frustrating if you're in a school. Now, I've been in a school, not like Tupelo, that did not have all those resources, but sometimes, too, there's Tupelo is a little bit more strict just because they are a city and it's a big district, but even though the smaller schools or whatever, the teachers lead into a smaller school, even though they might not have the same resources, they're like, especially if it's like a smaller community or a county school, there also might be a little bit more freedom and leniency in them sharing their beliefs, because, like, for me, I might have kids in there who are definitely not all Christian, but if it's like a smaller school, even though they might not have the resources, all the kids might actually be Christian, though. Right. So they might actually could kind of share, but if we don't have people going into education who genuinely feel like it's a calling, absolutely, what is affected negatively is just our future in general, because the students are the ones who will be negatively affected, because then they'll just have teachers who are there for the paycheck. And
like you said, it's not necessarily that you want to go into teaching being with the outlook or the intention of pushing your Christianity onto students.
That is not.
But to go in there and to be a light to those kids and to show them that it doesn't matter what religion your parents claim for you. It doesn't matter what religion you
I love you regardless.
are told, that you are. The important thing is to show them Jesus.
Yeah. The bottom line is the Spirit draws all men unto Him, and He will draw them at the right time. And if He wants to use me as a witness and as a light and as, a part of their spiritual journey, I'm honored. But if it's the Lord's plan just for them to be able to look back, and I've been very blessed that being in the, I've only taught at Two Glows, South Carolina, Guntown. I always taught that 1 year at Shannon. But so now that I live in Guntown, obviously, one of my previous students is also my nurse practitioner and one of my best friends now. We're literally texting about when we have a pool day. She was one of my students my first year. Now she's 30-something. But I ran into a girl at the gas station the other day, and then one came into Ulta, and they both said, and it made me feel so good, because especially those early years, you're thinking, my Lord, there's no telling all the stupid stuff I probably did just being young and not knowing, and it's a million wonders they even let me come back the next year, But the girl at the gas station, she was checking me out, and she was like, I just want you to know, I know I was very quiet in your class, but I heard everything you said, and she said, I just want you to know that I really enjoyed your class. And she said, high school was not a fun time for me. And she said, your class was always a safe place for me when I felt like I was bullied or not accepted. She said, your class was always safe for me. And she said, I've just always wanted to tell you that. And I just was, okay, but that's happened at least 3 or 4 times within the last year. And I'm thinking, like, Lord, thank you that I didn't even realize.
For that reassurance.
Yeah, and that was years ago. Now I kind of go out of my way to make sure it's a safe place. But I guess maybe just the Lord was preparing me,
right?
Kind of for that. So, but yeah, if I'm not in the classroom, I can't. How can I be an influence? How can I be a safe place? So, and I think that's important for new teachers to understand, is that if you're going to teach in the public school system, just model those beliefs. Show, don't tell.
Right.
I promise you, those kids see so much more than you realize. They see so much. And just seeing you treat people kindly, treat other people kindly, sometimes it comes down to how they see you treating their classmates.
Right. And I think a lot of kids are really black and white when it comes to that. It doesn't matter necessarily what you say to them if they've seen you do different.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I had fun talking to you.
Yes.
And I sure do appreciate you talking to us and giving us some insight on, what it's like to balance your beliefs with your career as a teacher.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank Both for Souls, our sponsor. And yeah, so it's really, really hot out here. And I think we've gone way over. We've doubled our time, but that's okay. This will just be a long one. But we are burning up out here, so we are going to let you guys go for today. And we will see you again next week. Thanks.